after e4, c5, knight f3, e6, we know we go on with knight c3. Now we're going to look at a few things we haven't seen in the previous videos. One of them is d5. Now we have seen this before, but let's look at something different. So we know we have to take, pawn takes back, and now bishop b5 check, and this is blocked with the knight to c6. Now we castle. So far so good. The two things we haven't seen now are this ones, which is basically black playing d4, or bishop to e7, which is something we have seen, and then we play d4, but now black playing c4. These are very popular setups, they get played a lot, and you need to know what to do against them. So let's go back a second. Here in this position, after playing bishop b5 check, knight to c6, white just castled, okay? So here, what if black plays d4 before we get the chance to play d4? Okay, well, too late, because now we're already winning. Rook e1 check. This can be blocked in two ways, either bishop e7 or bishop e6. Of course, we're not going to look at any other ideas like queen blocking in e7, because, I mean, come on. So, let's look at this. Bishop to e6, blocking. Let's start with this. Now here we play knight to e4, saving the knight from the pawn, and we're already completely winning. Now here, what can black do? If black develops, let's say knight f6, you play knight e to g5, and you got double attack over this bishop, and you're winning material, and it's a great position. Position already evaluated as if white was more than up a piece. And this also cannot be defended again, because then you can also attack it again with bishop to c4. Let's make an example. Now we got this attack going on. What if what if black defends it with queen d7? Okay, attack the queen, knight e5, and that's it. You can't really play a move like queen d6, because you see, you go to f7 with the knight, the bishop is pinned, you're attacking queen and rook, you can't ask for more. So after knight e5, what if the queen goes back to c8 to still put defense over this knight, because now we got double attack over the knight in c6. Well, again, now here you're just taking f7, then you're also going to be taking this bishop, and the game plays itself. So a couple of moves ago, instead of queen to d7 to protect that bishop further, which loses tempo because of knight e5, what if the queen goes straight away to c8? Okay, well, bishop to c4. And now we're finalizing the attack over this bishop, and that's going to be it. Knight can't just go to, I mean, knight to d8 seems like it manages to put the extra necessary defender to the square e6. However, you take in f7, and there's no coming back. The bishop is still pinned. There's no coming back here. If the rook moves, let's say in d8, then you just take the knight, and you're going to be recapturing in e6. The game plays itself. In this position, instead of rook g8, what if the knight takes? Well, now rook check, and then the king has to move. Whatever, the king moves to d7. The best move is to take the knight. Pawn takes back, and now basically winning two knights for the rook, but position is completely winning. Bishop to d6 developing. Let's see if black tries some crazy development, maybe some initiative due to the open file, but no, you play c4. This is a great move. If you get taken, when you take back, you're pinning this bishop, you're developing the bishop, you're completely winning. So it's not recommendable for black to take, of course. If black then goes on queen to f8, attacking the queen and trying to go on the attack of our queen, just a desperate bunch of moves. Simply bishop to d5, go back, queen to g7, b4. And we just want to dismantle this the queen side. Rook h to g8, ignoring that we can take the rook, because then the rook can take back. However, the best move according to the engine here is g3. And we're going to drop the line here. Remember that we're also threatening queen h4 check. To get the development going, you're just going to play d3 eventually and get the pieces out. So in this position, right after knight f7, what if the king takes? Well, now you simply play knight to g5. It's check, and you're finalizing the attack on this bishop. So you're going to recapture the lost material. King to e7, and now it appears that our opponent has still a good number of defenders over this square, and we're still down a piece at the moment. What to do? d3. And after h6, kicking away the knight, we finally recapture. And now obviously we got enough attackers. Knight takes. We do have these two. Black has only the queen and the king defending, so obviously we are winning material. However, the best move according to the engine is queen to f3, which is so evil. The plan here is to simply play bishop takes and then swap everything and then go to b7 with check and win the rook. Best move according to the engine is queen to c6, but again you just take, and you take it from here. So let's make a recap, and let's see more of that. Knight c3, d5. Okay, take, bishop check. Knight c6, castle. We're looking at the early d4 variation by black, attacking the knight. Okay, check, bishop blocks, and now knight e4. What happens when black plays bishop to e7 to already unpin the bishop? Okay, well, d3. So earlier we went through knight f6, now we're going through bishop e7. d3, and now what to do? If black develops knight f6, black is one step away from castling, but you're going to play knight f to g5. And we're attacking the bishop. And now obviously knight taking in e4 just gives us a dominant position, because you're going to take the bishop, it comes with an attack on the queen, so they have to take back. Rook takes e4, position evaluated as if we were up a piece. There's pressure on this pawn, pressure on this diagonal. So let's not look at this line. Let's go to the one that looks a little bit more logical. Straight after knight f to g5. What if black castles? Okay, again, take this bishop. Pawn takes back. Knight to g5. Finalizes the attack over e6. We have enough attackers to go for that square. If the queen defends it, still, you're going to take in e6. There was nothing else to be done. And it's not like this could have been avoided. Let's say, for example, if the pawn pushes to get safe, then you have a fork, knight e6, right? So after queen blocks, protects, but still, knight e6 is going to happen anyway. Rook f7 to save the rook. Bishop f4 attacking the queen. Queen moves back. Knight to g5 attacking the rook. Rook moves back. Check. King has to move. Well, you don't really want to block because you're pinning yourself. And now white goes on with queen to f3. And now bishop takes in g5 doesn't work, because it is true that we lost a piece and black has got a lot of attack over f4, but you're going to take this with the queen with check, and then you recapture the bishop, right? Even if you get taken back, doesn't matter, you're going to be winning a piece. And in this position, even without bishop takes in g5, let's say if black plays, let's say h6 to attack the knight and then potentially play g5, still you're going to be winning this knight for free, and you're completely winning, position evaluated +6. Then you can play a move like knight f7 and so on. So if instead our opponent plays the best move, which according to the engine is rook to f5, right? Obviously in this position you play rook to f5, it puts more defense over this knight. The best move is g4, which forces the rook away. The rook will be giving away for the knight. So we're going to go up the exchange, but it's a completely winning position. Position evaluated +4. And needless to say, in this position after bishop c4 check, we went through what happens after the knight pinning itself in d5. What if instead the king moves, then you go knight f6, and this cannot be ignored. Black can't just move away, because then when you move the knight, then you're attacking the queen. So the rook will have to take, and then you go up the exchange. It's a great position to play. Rook to f8, trying to find some compensation. Bishop to e6. The queen will have to go back, only square. Queen to e8, but also queen to e8. But either way, you're going to play bishop to h3 now. The king side is completely safe. You're up a pawn and the exchange. So let's make a recap now. And see something slightly different. So knight c3, d5, take, check. Knight c6, castle. We're looking at the early d4. Okay, rook e1, check. Bishop blocks. Knight e4, bishop to e7. We said that we're going to play d3 here. What if instead of knight f6, black attacks our bishop? Okay, take, and now knight to e5. Threatens to win a pawn and a swap with this bishop. So queen to d5, attacks the knight, protects the pawn, develops the queen. But still, you play knight to c4, and now you're threatening knight to d6. This is very strong. If our opponent plays a developing move, let's say knight f6, you just play knight b6, and this is a fork to two major pieces. So what if rook to b8, stopping that from happening? Then you will play bishop to f4 to put more attack over the square d6, and that's going to be it. Here you're gonna play, well, bishop f4 is attacking the rook, so when the rook moves but either goes to b7 or b5, you play knight d6 check, knight e to d6, and you're winning this rook. And back a couple of moves ago, instead of rook b8 or anything else, what if rook to d8? Seems to be putting enough defense over that square, the d6 square. So now the best move is still bishop f4, But it looks like now we won't be able to play knight to d6. So after knight to f6 developing, knight to g5 by white puts attack on the usual e6 square. Black seems to be able to castle, but how is it the position is evaluated +3 and has been evaluated +3 for a while? How come? Even though it looks everything so stable and so normal. See, the thing is, you take, and now you play queen e2 and you finalize the attack over this pawn. That cannot be defended in any way. So one last mention, right in this position, in the variation with black blocking with bishop e6, we play knight e4. We went through bishop e7, knight f6. What if queen to b6? This is a sensible move. It stacks the bishop, defends the knight further, and prepares maybe long castle, just in case things get really desperate. Here you play bishop to c4. Now you're attacking the bishop. The bishop can't just take you. It looks free, but then knight d6 check. King has to move, king to d7, let's say, but now you recapture this bishop with an attack on the queen. The queen will have to move, queen to c7, but either way you're going to play knight check. Your opponent can swap everything if necessary, but then again we go in there to e5, the game plays itself. Wherever the king moves, we're going to be able to take to play g6 with check. If instead, let's say the king goes to d8, here you go on with queen to h5 and you're planning to play knight f7. g6 is a weakening move. Knight to h6 is bad because you just played d3. And now, the thing is, you're going to be able to play bishop g5 no matter what. Bishop e7 is not good because you can take the knight, and then knight f7 is just winning. Here in this position, if instead g6 comes with an attack on the queen, then queen to h4 check. And now we got double attack on this knight. So in this position, instead of knight h6, what if g6? As we said, it's a weakening move because of the familiar queen f3, which targets f7, and there's no coming back here. f5 by black might seem like a desperate last option, but now queen to d5 check, and we are indeed able to reach the square f7. So in this position, in the queen b6 variation, we said we play bishop c4 and we mentioned that the bishop can't really take. Okay, well, what about bishop e7 developing? Okay, take, he takes back, and now d3. e5 by black. Is our opponent going to be able to actually play a normal game? Finally, he's only 2 steps away from castling, but no, because knight to g3, and now we're winning this pawn for free. This cannot be stopped. Even if it gets stopped like this, queen to c7 on either way, you are going to take. And now knight takes back, but now bishop to f4. And then when the next defense comes, you can swap the knight and then play f4. So you are taking the upper hand. So another thing that has to be seen, and it is a different topic now, we didn't go through this in the previous video. So still in the d5 game, like this early attack by black is very aggressive. Bishop e5 check, knight blocks castle. If you remember from previous videos, we went to bishop e7, and now black basically didn't play d4, therefore we have the chance to play d4. So what happens after c4 by black? This closes the center. It's kind of annoying because the whole plan that we usually have, if you remember, of taking this pawn, and then the queen takes back in d5 and blah blah blah. What about c4 now? Okay, we can't do that move anymore, but we're going to put an attack on that knight in c6. Bishop d7 puts more defense. Okay, queen to h5. Going straight away for the attack on f7. Again, g6 is a weakening move because queen f3, and now you're still attacking the square f7. And also the pawn in d5, so you're capitalizing like that. Knight f6, but now bishop to h6, preventing our opponent from castling. And that's going to be it. This cannot be stopped in any way. Let's say, for example, our opponent takes the knight. Well, okay, take back. The knight will have to move. Knight to g8, then you can play bishop g7, traps the rook. Knight to g4, you can just take it for free, since the bishop is pinned. And in this position, what if black just plays queen to c7, the idea of maybe playing rook to g8, maybe castling long or something like that. It's just so horrible. The thing is that we have double attack over the pawn in d5, so you're going to take with the knight. There's an attack on the queen, so the knight will have to take back. And now queen to f7 check is the best move. The king is forced to move, and now I recapture the knight in d5. With the knight in knight f7, you're also going to recapture in c4. This knight is advised not to take on knight because after pawn takes back with threatening e6, there's so much pressure on the board here, it's deadly. So instead of that, what if our opponent just moves the king to c8, but still you take the knight, take the bishop with the knight in d7, but still you take the bishop with the knight, queen takes back, take everything, and now d5 should capitalize the game. One last recap to understand this completely. So the early d5 attack, take, check, knight c6, castle, bishop e7, okay, d4. The c4 line, knight e5, bishop to d7, queen h5. We said that g6 is a weakening move. What if the knight takes us already to stop the attack on f7? Okay, take back with the queen. There's already no coming back here. What can black do? Black can't really develop knight f6 because you will simply take this pawn. It's a free pawn. And then these two pawns both are falling, right? If the bishop takes us, then you take back. Pawn takes back, you ruin the pawn structure, you recapture the bishop in b5, you're also taking c4. And obviously, the entire position is falling apart. And so in this position, what if instead of knight developing, what if the bishop takes us already? Okay, well, taking g7. And you don't have to worry about the bishop playing f6 and trapping you, because rook e1 check. Now the king will have to move. The knight can't block, because then you can take the bishop in f6 with an attack on the rook. It's deadly position. The bishop can't block, because then you're attacking the rook. The king can't move anywhere, nor here, nor here. He must go to d7. When that happens, you take the pawn with check. The knight can't block, because then you're taking this bishop. The queen can't block because you're attacking with the rook. So, well, bishop to e7 means you will play queen d5 check, and you're recapturing this bishop as well. So you won material, and the position of the opponent king is completely horrible. King going to c8 instead of blocking the check seems to be possible. Now you recapture this bishop, and now you're threatening rook to e8, winning the game on the spot. This cannot be stopped in any way. Knight e7 is not possible. Knight h6 is not possible because you can take it with the bishop. Bishop e7 seems to be stopping it. But bishop to f4 now capitalizes this game. Look how ridiculous it is. The other opponent can't make a single move. No piece can move without being taken. It's really funny. What if a6 now seems to be attacking the knight? When knight to c3, finalizing the attack on this pawn. Now you realize why these two pawns structure is very weak. So let's make a recap now, and let's talk about the e6, knight c3. And now let's look at this a6 move. This is one of the main moves. As we know, we play g3, ready to put the bishop on the best diagonals. So b5 now by black, and now we play bishop g2, bishop to b7, and we have seen this in the past. We know we have to play d4, but a move we haven't seen at all is b4 now with an attack on our knight. Okay, now you play knight to a4, so you gotta get it out of the way. Queen to c7, developing, and putting more defense over the pawn in c5. You play bishop to f4, attacking the queen. The queen will have to move. Obviously d6 doesn't make sense because you can take in c5. The pawn in d6 will be pinned. So d6 is not possible. Queen to c6, moving away. Okay, well, now we can take in c5. And it looks like our opponent has enough attackers to recapture the lost pawn. However, after taking, you can play knight e5. It's attacking the queen. The queen will have to move. And now you will recapture this pawn. And when the queen takes you back, queen to g4. Capitalizing on the weakness on g7. Now here what to play? g6, the usual bad move. Rook to d1. This is how you play it. Oh, before we mention g6, here, king to f8 might look like a fine move to play, but actually it loses immediately because of queen h5 threatening checkmate. And g6, if it happens now, you will play knight g6 check, right, and you're winning this queen. So in this position, instead of king f8, what about g6? Oh, by the way, one last mention, instead of g6, what if queen to d8 to protect this further? It's really crazy because now you play knight d6, knight c4 with the idea of knight d6. It's unstoppable, and it gets much easier now. So that's horrible. So let's look at g6 finally. Okay, rook to d1. And now, developing moves. What about knight f6? Attacking the queen, loses immediately because of queen g5. And now the opponent will have to move the knight again. The king cannot just block because, again, knight g6 check and you're attacking this queen, right? So the king can't do that. What if queen to e7 to protect that more? Okay, knight to c4 with the idea of going to d6, unstoppable. The best move here, according to the engine, is knight takes pawn in e4. You recapture. If queen takes queen, first you give a check, the king moves, and then you recapture the queen, and it's a completely dominant position evaluated +4 or +5 or something like that. If instead of queen taking queen, what if black recaptures the piece in e4 with the bishop? Okay, well again, check. Knight check, the king will have to move. If the king goes to d8, queen a5 is checkmate. If the king goes to f8, then queen e5, attacking the rook. It's a deadly threat. The rook can't just move because bishop h6 is checkmate. I mean, checkmate to follow. Rook to the g8 is not possible. f6, attacking the queen. Okay, first check. And now the king can move to g8, but now you recapture this bishop. And after knight to c6, in order to stop us from taking the rook, h4 with the idea of h5. Look, position evaluated plus 2 pieces or something. Obviously, white is completely dominating this game. Black pieces can't really play. So here, in this position, after rook to d1, our opponent played knight f6 in the earlier variation. What if knight to e7? Does that change anything? Now you play queen to h4. And now a move like knight e to c6, for instance, is just met with knight to g4, with all the threats of the world, right? It's an unbelievable position. A move like instead, let's say, knight b to c6 to develop, you just take in d7 with the knight and attacking the queen, and then you're ready to go to f6. So what to do at this point? The best move according to the engine for black is h6. And now we go on with castling. Now you're also threatening queen f6. g5 is not a thing because the pawn in h6 is pinned. You will take the rook. Best move once again according to the engine is knight to g8. And now you play rook to d2 with the idea of doubling up. This cannot be stopped with d6. It looks like a very logical move. It's attacking the knight. The knight will have to move because you will play rook f to d1. Careless, because when the knight is taken, then you're going to d8. The very last recap before closing this video is the following. So a6, g3, b5, bishop g2, bishop b7, d4. Looking at the variation with b4, attacking the knight. Knight moves. What if instead of queen c7, our opponent takes the pawn in d4? Okay, take back with the knight. Knight f6 developing, and you play c4. And now here, black cannot take. If black takes, you take back with the knight. And yes, the game is equalized. I'm going to be focusing more on this in the next video, because this is basically a pattern from that happens a lot. So I'm going to be focusing on this. But obviously, we're going to be still defending the pawn in e4 and then carry on with development, although it's the most boring. What if black develops? Let's say knight to c6. Let's see this idea. e5, because now the bishop is covered, right? It's no longer targeting g2. The knight will have to move. If knight goes to g8, okay, knight to b3. This knight can't take in e5 because then the bishop falls. So after queen to c7, defending this bishop, now you play the thematic move, knight b to c5, threatening to take this bishop. When you take that bishop, obviously you've removed a very strong piece from our opponent. So bishop to c8, saving the bishop. That's necessary because we wanted to trade it. Castle. And now knight to e5 isn't possible. Although it's an idea. The idea is that basically, yes, we can take the rook, but then black has 2 pieces attacking this knight, and our initiative is removed. And besides, so the best move here is knight to e6, attacking the queen. When the pawn takes back, now you recapture the rook. This is the best and most accurate way to continue. So in this position, after e5, we went to knight g8. What if the knight takes our knight first? This is actually bad, because now you take this bishop, and the attack on the knight remains, whilst the attack on the knight remains, and the attack on the rook remains. Everybody remains, except for Britain in the European Union. They didn't want to remain. Anyway, rook to b8, saving the rook from the attack of the bishop. The most accurate way to continue is bishop got back, and now you still got 2 pieces under attack. And you're going to be winning material. So let's say the knight takes back to f5. This is the best move according to the engine. by just taking f6, and you can take it from here.